Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to one of the last sessions of the afternoon and of the conference itself. So as we're letting people in, again, we want to say, if you are here for this wonderful presentation, Empathetic Communication, you are in the right place. And so we want to just do a quick little icebreaker as we continue to let people in. One, give a shout out again where you're from so we can know where you are from. But then also, I've asked this in the earlier presentation. So I'm one of these folks that love to eat. So put in your favorite food. And if you are so inclined, if you are cooking something on Super Bowl Sunday or Valentine's Day, please let me know what it is. So just put, if you got any ideas of what you are cooking, what you're going to be making Super Bowl Sunday or what you're going to be making Valentine's Day, put that in the chat and just, again, shout out where you're from. We want to know what you guys are doing come the Super Bowl weekend and come Valentine's Day, what you're cooking. Do you have a favorite team who you think is going to win? I don't know. Both of my teams are out. So, you know, again, I was hoping for a repeat of last year with the Tampa Bay and KC, and both of them got out in the field goal. And I was like, really? Are you kidding me? So again, just welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. We have about another minute or so before we start. And so if you can just put that information in the chat, we can see where you're from. So I'm seeing some people, obviously, yeah, we got some from Austin, from El Paso. Whoa. Oh, somebody said they're a terrible cook. That's okay. Guess what? You can go order it. That's the great thing about Uber Eats and delivery. Or just do like me. I'm a house hop. So do whatever you got to do. Oh, seafood. All right. We got some folks from San Antonio. Oh, wow. That is cool. Cool, cool, cool. Y'all got some wonderful things. Abilene, somebody said they love seafood too. And then, of course, all-time favorite, some good old home-cooked soul food. So awesome, 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 awesome. Well, like we say at this conference, we feel like family. And so this is kind of our family reunion. So if you see me house hopping, wanting to be like, hey, El Paso, what y'all got going on? San Antonio, what y'all going on? What y'all got going on over there? What y'all cooking? Some seafood? I may be knocking at the door. So again, I want to just say welcome, 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 welcome. This is kind of the last piece for this conference. So we are super excited that you have joined us for this session. We are super stoked that the 22nd Central Texas African American Conference is coming to an end. But I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Felicia Mason Edwards, and I'm going to be your moderator today. And shortly, we'll definitely be enjoying the whole kind of thing in the crust for this particular session. Empathetic communication skills for behavioral health and wellness. And while we wait for people to, again, continue to join in, I just want to make sure that we go over a little bit of housekeeping, right? And I know you guys have already heard this probably about 1,000 times already. And so you should be definitely pros at this already. I want to first thank our sponsor for this particular session, which is Dell Medical School. Thank them so much for their sponsorship, because without sponsorships, conferences like this cannot go on. And so we are super excited that they have been willing to sponsor us. Other housekeeping, like we've been saying this whole time, this is a safe environment and this is a very supportive space. So please, again, continue to help us maintain that respectful environment and be very inclusive. So we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. Also, please, really important, please, if you are not speaking and if you are not asked to speak, please mute yourself, because we can hear that background noise. And I know it's hard to do sometimes. I know when you log on, it automatically unmutes you. So sometimes just be mindful to just mute yourself at all times. Also, again, use the chat function. And some of you guys are professional chatters. So you guys are the bomb. You guys are like going in. So awesome. Somebody even just said Mexican food. Woo-hoo! Love to cook. Great. So continue to use that function so you can interact throughout this presentation with the attendees. But also, if you have questions for the presenter, use the Q&A function in Whova. And those of you who are on Zoom, later on, we'll also get that opportunity where you can raise your virtual hand and you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly. So we have a couple of ways that you can do that. But again, for those of you who do not want to do that, that is okay. Please put your question in the Q&A function and we'll get to those when that time comes. Another thing, I know this conference has brought about all sorts of feelings, emotions, and there are times that you may be triggered and maybe there's something that's being said in this particular session may trigger you. So if you feel overwhelmed or you just need somebody to talk to, that's okay. That's why this conference exists. So please, you can reach out and dial 512-472-4357. I'm going to say that number again, and I know they're going to put it in the chat, but that number is 512-472-4357. And once prompted, you're going to press 1, and then you're going to press 1 again for immediate emotional support. So we also understand that, hey, again, things can trigger, and that is okay. We are here to help support you through this time. Thirdly, we have a number of surveys. And so surveys for us are really, really important. They help create the conference. They help create the sessions that we're doing. They also give you an opportunity to obtain CEUs. So as many of you know, that first link in the chat for CEUs, that is just to sign in. The second link will be given out usually 10 minutes before the end of the session, and that will be the actual evaluation. So please, please, it is very important that you fill out both of those sheets so you can get credit for being here, okay? And also the last one, the third link is going to be the actual session evaluation itself. So please take time to really evaluate this session. It's really, really important to us. We want to hear your feedback and we want to hear your comments, and so do the presenters. And also on that third one, that if you fill out that evaluation, you might get a chance to win that $25 gift card. And I know what some of y'all are cooking on Super Bowl Sunday and Valentine's Day, you could use that $25 gift card. So again, please, please, please fill out the information. And then lastly, I also just wanted to let you know that we have some great conference merchandise. So be sure to check it out at our online store. It is ctaafsc.com/shop. So really the letters for Central Texas African American Family Support Conference.com/shop. So please check it out and buy something so you can continue to help support this wonderful conference. Now, we got all the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Please join me in welcoming our wonderful presenter, Elliot Nyblack. Many of you have already seen him throughout this conference. He has been a co-moderator with Lady Joy, so you know his face. Elliot's story of recovery from childhood trauma, attempted suicide, bipolar 2, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is the bridge for understanding the healing potential of empathetic communication. This presentation will introduce participants to empathy-centered principles and skills, as well as practice everyday use tools for promoting sustained behavioral wellness in our loved ones and ourselves. So please, please, please help me welcome Mr. Elliott.
Hello, everybody. Oh, Felicia, thank you so much for that kind and, kind of ego-lifting introduction. Appreciate it. I'd like to welcome everybody to, the experience that is empathetic communication skills for behavior, wellness, and health. I chose this topic because one of the many professional hats that I wear is as an empathetic communication system specialist. Now, we're used to thinking about empathy in the sense of it's good to have a high level of it, and if you have a low level, not so groovy. What I do as a systems analyst with these is I look at empathy from a completely inert space. I see empathy kind of like my hand. I can't judge my hand for its handness. That would just be silly. What I can judge are the products of the actions that my hand chooses to break into this reality. Am I patting my friend on the back, or am I slapping him upside the head because I can't handle my emotions? Am I driving my car to the space and place that I want to be, designing my own future? Or am I holding on to the remote control, flipping through the channels just to lose myself instead of losing myself into sadness, the spaces that I'm used to being in, or at the very least was used? Now, empathetic communication systems takes a broad look at what is happening in the fabric of our society and how empathy plays into all of those pieces. Now, I say this because I have my story about why empathy is so important to me. It was mentioned within the description of the event, but this story is a foundation of who I am. So if you give me a moment, I'd like to share with you my recovery story, the chapter I like to call Before the Fall, and some pictures to go along with that. One moment. Now, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on June 7th, 1982. I'm pretty sure that whenever anybody tries to think back to the person they were as a child, it can be a difficult time, relatively at least, because thinking back and trying to remember from hazy memories of youth gets kind of mixed up, right? When it comes to family stories, photos, throwing you off and making you feel some kind of way. It could be good, bad, happy, sad. They are so long ago that to say with any assuredness that we know what we were like, it's kind of a stretch. And so when I think about the pieces that are me, my recovery, my childhood, well, I go by what my friends and family can tell me. And so here's my dad. When I was born, I was wanted. People wanted to bring me into this world. And while I was the only child between my mother and my father, they both had a good deal of experience with building a family. You see, between the two of them, they had 3 boys and 5 girls. And when I say a well-seasoned family, the youngest brother next to me is 19 years older than me. In a sense, I was an only child, where my nieces and nephews, well, some of them were older than me, some were right around my age. Now, that came to my benefit because the people that my parents were when I was first brought into this world is an infinitely different set of parents that was back in the day throwing out all these babies like rabbits. And I am so appreciative of the time they spent, because not just that I reaped the benefits of their labors, it's more so that I felt the love of 2 people who had built 2 separate families and wanted to create a new one together. And I just happened to be a part of that. I was always given some kind of encouragement for music or artistic expression. And I'm going to ask that you please focus on the cuteness of that drum and that little dark-skinned boy and not the antenna ears to his left, because woo, right? There's not even, I don't even think there's color in that. It's interesting. Now, my dad and my mom, let's say this man right here, he was in his early 60s when he had me. My mother, her mid 40s. I used to go along with the joke, oh, Elliot, you're just the what happened kind of kid. The surprise that no one thought they wanted, but turned out to be pretty good. I would play along with that when I hated myself, when I wouldn't let anybody know how much I despised myself as opposed to what I presented to the world. But then as I got older and built up a feeling of self-respect and dignity and worth, I take pride and I find value in the fact that the planned amount of love that these people gave to me was there for a reason. They wanted me. It didn't matter how old they were. It didn't matter what society told them they could do or can't do. It didn't matter what doctors told them that wasn't biologically possible. Guess what? I'm good like that. And apparently, so are my parents. Now, as a kid, I played the violin just for a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean since I was 6 until I was about 26. If you haven't noticed there, I'm balancing that, tiny little, well, no, big old violin with my big old head. My family and my cousins used to joke and say that looking at me walk was like watching a toothpick try to balance a watermelon on its head. I know that one day I'm going to grow into it. My mom says I will. And I know that she's telling me the truth because I know that she has the superpowers of massive amounts of patience. I know my dad has the superpower of infinite love and resources that I could never doubt a single thing that they told me. And all of that patience, all of it, the love, the time they spent with me, the friends they brought into this world with me, that's my girl, Lindsay. Lindsay was my first ever friend. She went to the same school with me up until kindergarten. And even that one year we were apart, came right back together. So after all this time, she is literally my oldest known friend. And I'm very proud to be able to say that. My mom here, Small World Discovery Center, that was the space where I learned to love learning. All of the attention I got from my parents who knew the value of education and just a happy kid, especially one that was kind of always jumping off of things when I wasn't being adorable. I mean, look at that smile, nothing but teeth and ideas of burning stuff, like hopes and dreams. Oh, so precocious. And now the reason why I'm sharing this piece is that it's part of my recovery story. And I call this part chapter 1, Before the Fall. Because on June 7th, 1994, on my 12th birthday, I had an experience of complete anterior gradum amnesia, also known as dissociative amnesia. And so on my birthday, June 7th, 1994, 12 years old, I lost every memory I have ever had. Mental health has always been something that is important to me. And empathy is basically at the core of who I am as a person. And the way those two play together is evident in my story. Because after that, I spent my entire time in 12-year-olds trying to learn people. And the best way I could was to not tell a soul that I didn't know their faces or names. I let nobody know that when everybody was out of the house, I was on a bookshelf trying to memorize photo albums, yearbooks. I was doing my best to listen to the radio. I was doing my best to listen to the language outside my window because I knew that to survive, I needed to pretend to know what to do and what to say in any interaction. And so empathy as a principle played into that. I was listening to everything. I was looking and watching and observing people and seeing what they said, and then also seeing what they did. Hearing them talk about intentions, and yet the results, every so often, as in a lot, they didn't follow up. And so empathy was as natural to me as drinking water. I recognized that there is no way for anybody to know 100% what is going on in the minds of someone else, what they're feeling, what they have going on in their lives. And so in order for me to learn people and communicate with people, my sense of empathy needed to come from multiple angles. Language, but also body language. I was looking in the actions of someone's past. I was looking into so many aspects because the power behind my memory of waking up at 12, earth-shattering. I was in a bed, in a room, all alone. It was the scariest thing, and I have never experienced anything akin to that since. My first lucid memory is of this weird, gray, hazy space. And yet the one thing that pulled me out of that bed and gave me direction was something that I smelled, and it was pretty delicious. And I want to give you more information about that, but first I'm babbling, and I should probably get the whole titles and certifications piece out the way so that you know if I'm even worth listening to. I am, but I can say that because I love myself, and hope you do too. Love yourself, not myself. That's narcissistic. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I have a lot, again, of professional hats, empathetic communication system specialist, but also I am the Chief Equity and Education Officer for the D. Wood Foundation. We're a mental health and suicide awareness nonprofit that focuses on advocacy within minority neighborhoods. Second, I'm the developer of Educated Empathy. Educated Empathy is a line of life fulfillment coaching. It's a way of understanding how empathy and understanding ourselves and the world around us makes life pretty interesting. Along with our trainings, Educated Empathy teaches organizations on how to, well, be a family over a corporation. It's a great time. And I love that I've been able to bring that with me to the D. Wood Foundation so that we've joined forces to make magic happen. Most currently, and I will say most significant to my life, is that I became a mental health peer specialist and a recovery support peer specialist. Peers are people with lived experience in the realms of mental health illnesses, substance misuse, homelessness, reentry from incarceration. And within that lived experience, they have made it through some of the most difficult, harsh times that I would never wish on any, even my worst enemies. But I don't have enemies. No, I love people way too much. Having seen and experienced all the pain myself, I have firsthand knowledge and proof that there is a well of bottomless hope and humanity, and we as people can make it happen. So the hate, if you want to waste your time, go for broke. Me, I'm gonna be human's biggest fan. I mean, I'm a human, you're a human, all humans. And if you're a kid from the 90s, you know where that reference is coming from. Now, when I say I have experience as a peer, that means I regularly share what I've been through. I have a dual diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and bipolar type 2. I've had these diagnoses pretty much my entire life, from 12 and on. The confusion that went along with those led to some horrible things. 2 suicide attempts, dropping out of college 3 times, beginning a substance misuse of opioids when there wasn't really any other way that I could feel and not feel. I share this information because part of being a peer specialist is encouraging others to share their stories by sharing yours. Because unlike social workers, we don't give help to people. We help our peers help themselves. And that is one of the most important parts about my work and why I'm here today. Because empathy as a system is something that we can adjust our language to make magic happen. And I'm going to now get over to that learning objective in one moment.
And while he's pulling that up, just a reminder to put your questions in the Q&A function. And then later, we'll be able to get and answer those.
Now, I don't know how I forgot about this, but I always like to say that I am more than my diagnosis. I am more than a label. I am more than a medication that I take. I'm a teacher. That is my passion in life. I miss working with young people. I miss being in a classroom and creating a space that is safe and encouraging for learning to happen. I love small, fluffy animals. It's a thing. That's Sweetness on the left. She's my baby girl. And that's just a random black bunny that, is a random black bunny. And I want to pet it. And on the hope and humanity part, I'll say it one more time. Bottomless potential in all of us. It's what makes my life worth living. And so today, we are going to be learning some skills in regard to our language that will help us promote self-healing in others, and yet more importantly, help us heal ourselves. We're going to look at the ways that interpersonal communication and intrapersonal communication play together to make all of this happen. Because when it comes to healing, sometimes we must take care of ourselves in order to take care of others. Now, I have some guiding questions that I'd like you to keep in mind as we proceed. First, I'll be giving you little tidbits of information about each of these. And so come the end, you should be able to answer them, but also internalize those answers so that you can understand the actual power behind them. What is this golden rule paradox? And these 4 types of language: contradiction, affirmation, deference, respect. How do those play into empathy and communication? We're going to find out. Now, a recovery story is what I just shared with you, at least the first part, because it's a personal accounting of what I have been through in order to get to where I am today. And so with that said, I'd like to share with you my experience within school of how tough it got and the strength it took me to get through it. Sometimes people put up slides for this, but I prefer actually having a conversation where people can see my face and understand my presence. Being one of the few Black children within a private school was difficult, or at least you'd think it would be, because my middle school experience in a private Quaker school was the best thing that I could ever hope for. Green Street Friends School was a godsend until 6th grade. Because at that point, I was in the midst of trying to re-understand people. I started hearing voices. I started yelling in class about I was going to kill Jacob Lerman and Don Parker because I knew they were talking about me behind my back. And it's not that they weren't. It's just that the voices, they reminded me of theirs in the bullying. Come 7th grade, I calmed down a good deal. And yet somehow there were teachers who were afraid of me. I didn't know it at the time, but when I think back, it makes perfect sense. But by 8th grade, I had figured out exactly what I needed to do to get people to like me. Somehow, if you just pretend as you don't care, people care about you. They think you're the cool kid. They think you're the one to follow. And I ate it up because the persona of being popular is one of the best ways to hide how you're really feeling. You can either hurt people as a bully to distract from your own pain, or you can be the cool kid. You can be the social butterfly. You can go all over the place, have all the friends and be in all the spaces, and you just want to be home at the same time crying. I first started considering suicide when I was in high school. It was my senior year, and it was something that I should have taken seriously, obviously, but I was too scared to say anything. I went to college. I got my first mental health diagnosis, a misdiagnosis of depression. And the medicine that they put me on was found out later to exacerbate suicidal ideation in adolescence. So the first time I tried to commit suicide, when it was my sophomore year, in my dorm room, all by myself, crying because my Aunt Carol had just passed away, and I'm in upstate New York, and I can't even get down to Philly to be with my family. It was like, I'm more than all alone now. What's the point? Why not just lock my door? Why not just fade away? And I am thankful that a part of my recovery story is that even after downing all of those pills, even after being so angry with myself for surviving, I went to the counseling center and just finally talked to somebody. Next thing I know, I'm taking a sabbatical from school, much needed, but the sadness didn't go away. I took the next year off from school and returned thinking that I could handle it. And I did. I made it through 1 year. I was sure that, okay, it doesn't matter that I'm feeling this way. As long as I can just keep chugging, I can do this. But I couldn't, because during my second junior year, when there was a party going on in the upstairs area of my dorm and everybody's inviting me up, I decided instead to lock my door, take the entire bottle of hydrocodone that was prescribed to me for a messed up shoulder, and just go to sleep. I remember not even thinking about it all that much. It was kind of just like the obvious thing to do. When you haven't ever given yourself the time of day to understand yourself, because I had all of this time and energy spent understanding other people, I never built up the capacity to understand myself. The way I spoke to myself, much different from the way I spoke with other people. I came across as confident. I knew what I was talking about. I was the person with all the best advice. No matter what someone was feeling, I had the words to make them feel a little bit better, make them feel like they were home. And I will say this, I continue to this day to have a life mission of wherever I'm in, whatever space I'm in, I want people to feel safe and secure in being themselves. And I can do that now because I've done it for myself. So now fast forwarding, I still have this feeling that I need to end my life. And so I leave school a second time. What didn't help was that I had to change my doctors. At the very least, I thought that wasn't going to help, because next up, I'm asking this new doctor different questions, and they're asking me different questions. And it's not that I'm just sad. I start remembering I did 100 push-ups just the last day because I just couldn't control my body. I could go months getting all the stuff done, going to all the clubs, getting all the work done. And next thing you know, I'd be crashing. I didn't know that because of this, it was a diagnosis of bipolar 2 that made my life make sense. Because you see, we're so used to thinking about bipolar disorder as a thing of, well, lack of a better term, people slobbering all over themselves, yelling and cursing on the bus, that people you want to say, ooh, take your children away from there. Be careful. I am not that person. I am not my diagnoses. If anything, I love talking about this because the way my life has improved ever since I was on the correct medication, along with a psychologist and a counselor always being a part of my life, I was able to go back to school. I was able to become a teacher. I was able to change the lives of so many children. Some young people who still are in contact with me to this day. I wish I could go back and see them graduate a second time, because that is exactly what I did. And one of the things that I found the most successful was in sharing myself with them. When you talk to high schoolers about that feeling of wanting to kill yourself, when you hear them talking about it for themselves, it's amazing to see how fast they open up, because they're not used to hearing adults talk about things like this. we are so afraid of talking with one another about mental health and the way it affects our lives. And it's hurting us. It's hurting generations of children who just want to feel like they're not alone. We all know what that felt like. Every single one of us. And so I come to you today with the concept of intrapersonal communication and interpersonal communication in order to make those kind of conversations happen, not just with young people, with our friends and family as well. You see, interpersonal communication, well, actually, let's take a look at something first. Let's see. All right. So interpersonal communication is the way that we talk with one another. It's more than just language, but for the sake of this conversation today, we're going to keep it just on the language end because language is a system and this is just a subpart of it. Now, language is the most inefficient way to communicate anything. I compare language to if we were ants with antenna. Ants, just touch the antenna and they know 100% what the other one is trying to say. Turn left here, turn right there. Watch out for that boot. You're going to get squashed. Be careful of magnifying glasses, like anything. It's 100% understood because of electric transfer of direct information antenna to antenna. But with words, not so much. And so within interpersonal communication, we have a difficult time with understanding concretely what someone else is thinking. For example, our friend here is thinking about a bear. And so now this thought he wants to share with a friend. And so that thought now has to travel from his brain to his mouth. And then the question comes, do you know what a bear is? Simple, right? Well, we think, or at least he thinks that, yeah, it's a bear. Everybody knows what a bear is. And so our friend thinks of a bear as well. And they're so confident that the brain sends a signal to their mouths and says, sure do, come on now. I know what a bear is. And they even think that that's such a nonsense question. Who doesn't know what a bear is? The thing is though, homie, number one, you're using big words, it's too much, stop it, it's pretentious. Second though, is that you see those two pictures of bears? One of them's not even a bear. Koalas are marsupials. So just even thinking of the word bear does not mean the person next to you is going to understand what that is. Now, even if we get more specific, hey, think of enough Care Bear. You know what a Care Bear is, right? Yeah, Care Bears, grumpy. But even then, two different Care Bears come to mind. It is impossible for us to know 100% what is going on in someone's mind because our minds, we have a difficult time even understanding them. And so what happens is that we need to find a way to make our own information, our own brains be more confident, more clear in what they are trying to communicate. And so intrapersonal communication, that's how we talk within ourselves. Intrapersonal communication begins with the thought. You hear the word bear, all right, do I like bears? Our brains, as soon as they hear this information, they start going through this process of just figuring out, okay, we have this piece of information. I saw a bear when I was a kid. It didn't scare me. It did scare me. I thought it was cool. What's going on? And then finally, once it is confident about its answer, it spits it out. And you say, oh yeah, I like bears. They're a good time. And now that's what we're thinking. But then what comes out of our mouths is, well, they are the most majestic animal that ever existed. So we've gone from just liking bears to this overreaction of bears, or underreaction if you really like them. Our brains are telling us one thing, and what we are communicating out is, more or less. Now, what happens though when it comes to feelings, especially about ourselves? Do I like who I am? Are my feelings important? And what do other people think about me? Those are questions I asked all the time. And when I ask them, a whole range of emotions comes up. And it's not just me, obviously. And those range of emotions, the way they are expressed, is directly related to how exactly it is we've been treated and how we've been taught to like ourselves. So when we now have these thoughts and our answers, they come through our actions of speaking, and we could experience emotions like stress, depression, anger, rage. This one here speaks to me in such a way that whenever I was sad as a kid, my dad, again, older man, and when I say older, he was in World War II. He was in the Navy. So he didn't have the benefit of social emotional learning training. His thing was, if you're sad, all right, that's what a steak is for. If you're happy, that's 2 steaks. Stress eating is what I was used to. And so when we have an inability to understand what we are saying to ourselves, we end up hurting ourselves. So now, how is it that we can communicate with ourselves in a way that is healthy, self-affirming, and helps us get to the spaces that we want to actually be? So in this space, we have 2 types of communication, and this is where those language pieces come in. When it comes to intrapersonal communication, we have contradiction language versus affirmation language. Now, contradiction language, as you can see here, is typically shown by the words but, can't, and should. Whereas affirmation language, that uses and, can, and will. Contradiction language, in essence, is saying that in any given situation, we have information that informs our, opinions. One type of sentence that I say is, my best friend, love him to death. He's always been there for me. He's always supported me, but he owes me $5. That word but in there completely negates every single thing I've said positive about my friend. I've now gone from focusing on the amazing person he is into he owes me money and that is all he is worth. When we use the word can't, we are saying that in this world, anything that we want to do, we're now focusing on what we cannot do instead of looking at what we can do. We know there are things that we can do. We know that, I know that I can drive a stick shift. I know that I can learn how to fly an airplane if I wanted to. I could say that, or I could choose the can't language. I could say, I can't ever buy something. I could never, ever buy a mansion. I can't stand that person over there. I cannot take listening to that annoying song anymore. But let's flip that. I can choose the space that I want to be in. I can choose the people that I want to be around. I can listen to music that I like and love. And even if I am in a space where I have no control over the music, I can always play a song in my head. I should have paid my electric bill on time. How about this? I will pay my electric bill on time next month. It's that the shoulds are things that we can't control. They are expectations that are impossible to meet because they are literally impossible to do in the future because they are in the past. Whereas the words will are future focused. They affirm our ability to interact with the world and make the changes that we want to happen. So within using affirmative language or affirmation language, we can now shift our thinking into a space of possibilities over a space of not. inability. So when it comes to healing, when we think to ourselves, I am going to consider everything that I've ever experienced. I am going to consider that in the midst of my happiness right now, I have also tried to kill myself. I have also tried to hurt people. I have also let friends down. I have done so many things to myself and my loved ones that in the past, it would leave me in tears and wanting me to try to take my life again. In the past, it would take me to a space of, why even take my meds? Why? I mean, it's not worth it. And yet, like I said in the beginning, my family, my mom and my dad showered me with love and attention. So even though they didn't know until I was 23 years old that I had lost all my memories, it didn't matter because the patience was always there. And so when we can heal ourselves and look inside of ourselves for positivity and growth, we can now shift into other people. Interpersonal language is the way we speak with one another. And there are two types in regard to the healing. But before we can get into this, we must understand that we have zero control over what someone else decides to do. I cannot state enough that interpersonal communication is that I can only control myself, and I have to recognize that moving forward. So I can't make somebody else heal themselves. What I can do is show examples and show acceptance and a desire to be there for that person. So that's where deference language comes in versus respect language. Deference language is the you, them, and they. I am sure everybody here has had an experience of someone saying, you know what you got to do, right? You know what needs to be done. If you're feeling sad, you just got to go out there and get some food. You feeling sad? All you got to do is go over to that person's house and tell them what you think. Oh, you lost your job? Well, listen, this is what you should do. Don't worry about the job. Take some time for yourself, and then you'll get to decide what you actually want to do. That is such an insult to the person who is in the situation. Because if you have 3 kids or 2 kids or no kids, but you just got some bills, taking the time off because someone said that you should isn't an option. And so what deference language is a way to ask that the person place my ideas, my intentions, that take them above how it impacted them. Deference is when we allow somebody to be more powerful than ourselves. We defer to their wisdom. We defer to the wisdom of our elders. And there's nothing wrong with that. With that said, when we don't understand that our words, when we communicate them, can be misunderstood and their impact can be what we didn't want to happen, deference means that it's their fault. You should know what I'm talking about. When I say you know what I mean, right? Not so much. Because now respect language flips that. Respect language recognizes the autonomy of the other person by focusing on yourself, which is kind of weird on the interpersonal communication piece. But why it makes sense is that when I use I statements, I'm sharing a new experience and a new perspective. Oh, you lost your job? I am so sorry to hear that. When I lost mine, I was able to take some time off. I was able to just, sit around and think about what I wanted to do next. I recognize, though, that I am so fortunate that I was able to do that. So I'm just putting this out there because if maybe you're able to do that for yourself, it's an option. Right there, I have introduced a new perspective to this person who was in a space of duress. By using I statements, I have now shared my experience and I'm letting this person know that I'm open to them sharing theirs. Because when we share something, kind of like kids, kind of like my best friend, Lindsay, you share a toy, a child wants to share right back with you. When we share our feelings and our emotions, when we share our problems, also when we share our happiness. Because remember, empathy is just like my hand. On its own is just a way of understanding what someone else is experiencing, putting myself in their shoes. That's it. I can empathize with anybody, and it doesn't mean I have to like them. I can empathize with any, and you know, I know there's always a way to upset individuals who hold different life perspectives. I'll just say that I can empathize with newscasters who everybody hates, who think spread misinformation, who spread things that are hurtful and harmful to certain people. I can empathize with them because I know what it is like to get so caught up in believing what other people tell me about other people that I don't look for myself. I know what it's like to not be around a certain kind of people because they're just not in my neighborhood. They're not in my school. They're not a part of my family. And so all I have to go on is what people tell me. I understand what that's like, and I still would never have that person over to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. And that's okay. Because now that I understand what this person, you know, could be potentially feeling, I can place myself in their shoes and have conversations with the intention of letting them know, I know where you're coming from. So now let's talk about an alternative to that experience. Respect their experiences. Hopefully, they'll respect and share mine. It's not guaranteed, but as long as I'm true to myself, I'm good. I language, and where it comes into regard for our community and our loved ones, why can't we build this community garden? I only have a limited amount of money. I'm not making all that much. And I know you don't have a lot of money. And I know you don't have a lot of money. And now that we've shared this reality, it's like, oh, well, if all of us don't have that much, well, you know, we know everybody doesn't have that much. Maybe I can just chip in a little bit of what I have because I don't have to be afraid of needing to give everything I have, because we put all of that pressure on ourselves because we want to help. And when we think we can't help in the way that someone else thinks they want us to help, well, nothing happens. But when we're honest with each other, when we use I statements, we are opening ourselves up to someone else's experiences. And again, great things can come from it. So to promote healing, not make it happen, is the purpose of using not deference language, but respect language. Yeah. So I want to end this with the request. It is very difficult to use affirmation language and respect language when you have been conditioned by our society to think poorly about yourself. I'm going to bring it into the theme of this conference, right? The African American Family Support Conference. We have literally, as a community, been beaten into hating ourselves. We have been forcibly taught to hate our skin based on complexion, hate our hair based on texture. We have so much inbuilt, I should have been born like this. I can't do this. I can never be a Fortune 500 person. I can never open my own business. And I am so thankful that that is something that has changed dramatically. I'll say this, I can't think of a better time in this world that I could be a Black person in. There are so many opportunities open to me, and I can take all of them up. It's not a perfect world. The legal system is definitely not perfect. But now I have the access to lawyers who can look out for me. I have the ability to read and write and protest and encourage and do so much. And I can concentrate on that, on the future. I can say, I can do this. And it's because we've grown so much as a country and as a community. Or I can say, I can't trust going outside. I can't be in my car at night. Police are going to get to me. And there is a completely legit way to look at that. And so by recognizing that the fear is real in anything, And I'm talking outside now of the scope of racism within this country. I just mean in general, a lived experience. We can either be focused on that fear and the can'ts and the buts, or we can look to the future with the ands and the wills. I will own my own company. I will live in a space that I designed for myself. I will fly an airplane. And airplanes, not so much. Helicopters, yes. And one of those flying squirrel suits, base jumping, that is this guy. I will do these things because I say it and I internalize it. And now that whole idea of the golden rule paradox, treat others as you want to be treated. Do unto others so that others will do unto you. And yet, if we aren't taking care of ourselves, if we aren't treating ourselves right, if we aren't going and doing the things that are the healthiest for us, how can we, to the best of our abilities, be there for others? How can I be there for my community when I'm sitting in my basement hating myself? How can I be there for my family and my friends when I'm avoiding them because I don't think I'm worth anything? When we take care of ourselves, we can take care of other people. I know it's cheesy, the whole put your airplane breathing mask on first, but and it's still a valid thing to say and internalize. I must take care of myself before I can take care of others. I can use affirmation language, I can use respect language, and I can encourage a society where we're all looking out for each other and we recognize what I already do internally. Hope. Humans are awesome. Thank you for being here. And I guess now I'll just shut the whole face hole thing and take questions and comments, and I'll open it back up when, they're asked.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine, Elliot. Well, one, I have to say, hey, when you go base jumping, I'm going with you. That is on my bucket list of things to do. So we can definitely do that. That is on my bucket list. But wanted to definitely say thank you so much for your wonderful words. Language is important, and definitely understanding language is very, very important. So thank you so much for what you brought. You got a lot of kudos in the chat, just people saying, oh, thank you. Love to hear you. You're optimistic. Just love it. Love it. Thank you for telling the truth. Very well done. All sorts of just wonderful kudos. So we want to definitely say thank you to those participants. Again, if you have any questions, please put that information in the chat, or just raise your hand. We can unmute you. Just raise your hand and that's perfectly fine. We do have one so far. Another one says, hey, this was amazing. So again, hey, you are like the in session of the conference. So you're bringing it home, Elliot. So thank you so much for that. There is one question in the Q&A. Oh, there's actually two now also. It says, empathetic communication is so vital to one's healing. Do you have information that can be shared with places like Integral Care, NAMI, Texas, or Texas Parent to Parent?
So unfortunately, /fortunately, there, in my research anyway, isn't anything on this idea of empathetic communication. And I am like 99.5% sure it's because our society is focused on this empathy is a good thing and it's a bad thing not to have it. So I right now am holding as many conversations as I can and putting together my, I won't say doctor or anything like that, but I am putting together my thesis on what that is. And so please, my information can be found within the Hoover app, I believe. Get in touch with me because these are conversations that I want to have and we need to have, because we can do so much more if we just think about how we talk to one another and ourselves. Thank you for the kudos.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So please, folks, get in contact with him. Maybe bring him out to your organization or to provide some sort of training. Awesome presentation. We have another question that says, how did you know that you needed to memorize by looking at photos? That's great. You knew what to do.
So one of the things that I appreciate about myself is, have you ever played one of those mind games or like thought games, right? If a zombie apocalypse hit, what would I do? You know, I push that person to the ground because they're slow. I jump out of that window. I pick up all of the different options. So in my adult life, I do that all the time because it's fun. I'm a problem solver. I love puzzles. I think the entire world is a puzzle. And it's one of the reasons why I love people so much, because they're the puzzle that will never stop being a puzzle. Can't solve them, but you can still have fun with them. So I know that I get that from that childhood experience of just looking around and saying, ooh, what do I do? And I'm very thankful you asked that question, because when I woke up and had no memories, I went downstairs because I smelled something delicious. It was just couldn't avoid it. So I go down my steps, I turn the corner through this tiny little living room, and I see in the kitchen, there's this woman at the sink and this man at the table. This woman says, oh, your dad brought you this balloon for your birthday and a birthday cake. So in that moment, it was, all right, this person's my dad, then that person's my mom. It's my birthday, so this balloon has the number 12 on it, so I'm 12 years old. All right, bet. And from that moment on, it was just strictly listening and just taking whatever information I could so that nobody would know that I didn't know them. So it was more so a case of remembering those core concepts, because remember, I kept all of my memories of speech, you know? I knew what a book was. I knew that yearbooks have pictures in them. I knew that yearbooks have pictures and people signing them. Family photo albums, some of them have names on the back of them. And so if I can get to those while nobody's looking, I can remember, so to speak, who this uncle is, who I should not be talking to when I get back to school. And thankfully, I was able to go to a summer camp that year that I had never been to. So I got the opportunity to start practicing how to be around people. Fortunately, to get back to school, not so much. But again, everything was a critical thinking problem that I just loved to solve.
So I'm sorry, I was the person who asked that question. But I'm really surprised that something excellent that you had when you were young is that you were calm. You were calm, and that you knew what to do, that you were not scared or frightened, that you were guided, you had your own strategy.
Thank you for saying, I appreciate those kind words. And I appreciate you recognizing something that is something that's good about me that I recognize for myself. I used to be so averse to accepting any kind of positive feedback or compliments. That whole, don't, if I could, I'd blush right now. Oh, yeah. We're taught basically to say, I'm going to back away from something positive that someone said about me because I don't deserve it. One of the ways that I got to the mental space that I'm in now is saying, wow, people are saying they like me. It's for a reason. And I, investigate and I see if I believe it. And so, yeah, I've had so many situations where I just go straight into problem solving mode and fear just doesn't happen. So again, thank you for recognizing that part of me.
Yeah, that is unique. That is amazing. Good for you.
I feel a warm and fuzzy. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for that comment. And again, I see Miss Lisa Jones, you have your hand up.
I guess first I just wanted to thank you so much for bringing up this whole conversation around the words that we use and how we use the words. And I'm thinking in my mind the question I want to ask, so I'm not sure if it's going to come out right, but I have found myself in different spaces. For instance, I was in a support group last night by a well-known organization, and I was just watching the words that the leaders were using. And I found myself going into this mode of, I think you should change that, and I said, Lisa, shut up, you're not the leader of this group. So I guess my question for you is, how do how do you encourage people to think more about what they're saying, especially if you're a participant in an organization that's well known, or you're sitting around people who supposedly are experts? I don't know if you've ever found yourself in that situation and you're thinking, the word you just said alienated about 10 people in this room, or the word, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know if that's making sense.
Perfect sense. I've been in those situations all the time, especially when I was a teacher and when it came to school administrators. So what I do now is consciously ask more questions than I do give statements. When when we talk, right, and we're sharing some information, it's very quick for us to ask, you know what I mean? We say that so much, and typically we nod our heads, right? Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But no, we don't. It's impossible for us to know what someone means, like 100%. And so I ask questions. I'll say, so big boss person, what did you mean by that word? Hey, big boss, bigger boss person. Why did you choose to do this? And people get really angry sometimes when you ask them why. And I try my best to follow up with, I'm genuinely curious. I want to know what your reasoning is. I care. I want to understand you. So yeah, please. I just want to know what you're feeling because I want to understand you. When I approach conversations like that, and I mean it too, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm actually genuinely curious about what they meant by that word, because 10 times out of 10, people don't understand the words that they are using when they bother other people. And so asking why or what somebody meant in a way that isn't accusational, or what did you mean by that? Get the tone out of my voice and ask from a space of genuine curiosity. That now encourages conversation. That person has to think in order to explain why they did that. And what happens also is they start to see and hear the contradictions in their own words. It's like, so why did you choose that sentence for trying to make us all feel better? Well, why did I use it? Get them to start thinking for themselves, and then they can't avoid what they come up with.
Thank you. We have a couple more people. You got some thumbs up there as well. We have Felicia. And then after Felicia, I see Miss Marine's hand is up.
All right. Elliot, I want to first applaud you for sharing your story with us, and also say to you, blushing looks good on you, sir. So feel free. There you go. There you go. But I absolutely agree with you on what the statements you said in part answered my questions about word choice. But one of the things I also want to ask is, do you do any work with youth?
So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off if you had a follow.
No, go ahead. I wanted to know if you do any work with youth individually or grouping or any type of group programs, or just maybe summer programs or what have you.
So right now, I am doing mentoring for one student, just because this young man reminds me so much of myself as a kid. And I see the troubles that he's experiencing, and I'm just like, you should not be alone. I want to be there for someone who reminds me of me so much on the pain tip. Outside of that, when I left teaching, I actually would go back and do some substitute teaching just because it was fun, but I haven't even done that in about 4 or 5 years. And yet with the D. Wood Foundation, we are based, well, I'm sorry, not based. We have a group called YNA, the You Are Not Alone Foundation. And so it's college student based. And so I still have somewhat of a presence with younger people in terms of mental health. I haven't worked within any large scale space of young children. And I'm building myself back up, with all the COVID nonsense happening, to be able to do that again.
Okay, can I respond?
Please.
And the reason I ask that is because from your own experience, what you shared with us, it happens at such a young age. You know, sometimes our young males particularly are experiencing things and they don't have an understanding, and your lived experience can maybe help them to recognize what's going on with them so that their outcome is different.
Mm. Thank you for reminding me of that. I have been sidestepping that fact, you know, because I've been so necessarily been focusing on keeping my mental health going strong in the midst of all of this. But even before all the COVID stuff, I'm sorry, and even before all the COVID stuff started going on. And so, thank you for that reminder that there are groups and especially young people out there who I can reach out to and say, I'm there for you. Seriously, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
I want to say it's Marion, but thank you for the, I enjoyed your presentation so much. But I wanted to ask what, I guess, because you like people so much, because I can relate a little bit, how do you not get burnt out?
Because and let's be real here, right? I always have to recognize that no matter what I'm feeling, right? No matter how positive I am, I can't tell the future. So, you know, I don't know if a piece of poop from an airplane is going to fall down on my head when I walk out the door. If that happened, my day is kind of done, no matter how happy I'm going to be during it. So recognizing that the future happens, it helps me to keep my equilibrium of expectations healthy. Part of the piece of peer support that has really been powerful for me is the idea that when I was a teacher, I was so invested in my students, and it was to my own detriment, right? Because it was, oh, I'm going to have all 25 of these kids reading, writing, going to college. They're going to have the best lives. And beginning teaching Elliott, didn't recognize that there are so many forces outside of my control that influence what my students had available to them. And so now within the peer support space, there are peers that I am helping to help themselves, and they stop coming to meetings. They stop following up on the plans that they gave to me. And so I finally started recognizing that it's not about me, it's about them. They're not trying to hurt me. They are not consciously saying, yo, F that dude, I don't need him. I mean, that might be part of their thinking, and yet it's still not about me. It's about how they see me and about how they are interpreting their own experiences. And so by having healthy expectations that I can only control myself, no one can hurt my feelings but me, people can use words at me and I can laugh and giggle and throw them back, or even bigger words to confuse them. I try my best to keep my own sense of autonomy. Healthy expectations are really what helps me. Oh, and also the idea that even if someone leaves, even if someone, you know, says, I don't want to do this anymore, that means there's another person behind them that'll take the place. There's always somebody who wants a chance, an opportunity to help themselves. So now I got another chance to meet somebody new. It's a good time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do you have any questions? I don't see any more on the Q&A, but wanted to give some space and opportunity. We have a few minutes left. So please raise your hands and you can unmute yourself and then ask your question. And if not, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm a big fan of comfortable silence. And so even if no one has a question or comment, please know that just your presence here is wonderful. Even if you're silent, that means you're still here and you're thinking about the space that we're in. So no pressure. Again, I'm thankful that you're here.
Definitely want to give you kudos for shouting out peer support. That is a huge, huge thing. That's actually, I work in that division of peer supporters. And so thank you for that and the importance of peer support as walking through people when they're going through their mental health or recovery journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have never felt more pulled to work in a profession than peer support, bar none. If anything, I want to do a youth peer support program at some point.
We're working on it. So we'll get you one as one of our stakeholders. We are working on it. It is in the queue. So we're super excited. I do the family side of peer support. So I'm a certified family partner. So definitely working with the families as they, as a family unit, travel through and journey through the process, which can be very, very difficult. So, but definitely I'm with you. Definitely my CFP credential is bigger than my LMFT credential, and it's a bigger part of my life and a bigger part of my story. So thank you for that, saying that.
Thank you for being the person that you are and for doing that.
Oh, it is up to you. And guys, hey, if and it's okay, we can be in the uncomfortable silence or comfortable silence for some of us. But if not, I also want to give you back your time. Be like, Miss Maxine, I'll give you back your time.
Well, Ms. Mason, can I make a quick comment to Mr. Elliott?
Absolutely.
I just want to say to you in an open public format, thank you for reminding us that words have power. And words either speak life or words speak death. And the power of our tongue, we control it. And we have to pull down those strongholds and be mindful of what it is we say to people, how we say to people, not only the words, but like you said earlier, pull back the tone. So thank you for that reminder for me personally, and I hope for all of us.
Very
And
well.
all I want to say to you, Elliot, is thank you. Thank you.
Thank
I
you, Miss
needed this.
Deborah.
I needed this.
And we needed it too. So we definitely thank you for your words, for your wisdom. It looks like you got some things that may be cooking in the fire here pretty soon. Hopefully, people are encouraging you to get back with the young people, do that, write that book or do whatever it is so you can share this information to the masses. So there's a lot of stuff, and we are definitely one big happy family here at Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. It has been an honor. Just want to do final housekeeping stuff. Make sure you fill out your surveys. Please, please, please fill out your surveys, not only for this presentation, but for the conference overall. But really that's important to us. We want to continue to make an awesome conference every single year. Hopefully we'll be in person next year. We're hoping that we can continue our family reunion vibe. For us, that have been around for a long time, we think going to this conference is like seeing family, and it's like helping support each other and being connected and feeling that connectedness, which we haven't been able to feel in 2 years. So it's very different for us, but we're super excited that hopefully next year we can be in person and get to see your lovely faces. So I will pass it to you, Elliot, for if you have any other final words of wisdom that you want to share.
I'd say that there is no such thing as a wrong feeling. Feelings, in my opinion, are like empathy. They just are. And the way we respond to them and consider them, that's what I feel is the most important thing. There's no such thing as a wrong feeling or a bad feeling. They're just feelings. So how do we react to them, or how do we respond to them? I like responding to my feelings instead of jumping in reaction. Thinking about what I'm going to do next has been transformative for my life. I hope, that others can take a little something from that as well.
Thank you. Well, you've heard it first, ladies and gentlemen. Take this, take the encouragement, take all of the hope that we will be together again, and continue to keep on keeping on. Even though some days may be gloomy, but just know there's always a silver lining. The sun does come out. Sometimes we don't know the day, but it will come out. And if you need support, you have folks who are willing to help support you and organizations that are willing to help you as well. We will get you the support that you need. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming and participating in this 22nd annual Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. Thank you, Elliot, for a phenomenal presentation, a great way to end an amazing conference. So thank you so much for your presence and your presentation. And thank you guys for being here and being present in the moment with us. So goodbye for now, but we hope to see you again next year. And don't forget to fill out those surveys. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and wonderful rest of our wonderful Black History Month. Goodbye.
Bye.